Okay, so here's the deal. Whenever you're recording, latency or that annoying echo can be a pain in the butt. So rule of thumb is turn off all your plugins, go to the options, let me back up a little bit. Studio One, options, audio device, or audio setup, pardon me. Of course your interface is going to be selected, hopefully. Then just remember this, the block size should be smallest when recording to remove latency. So if I were recording right now, I would take this and set it to 128, 256. You don't want to go 32 and 64. It's unrealistic. You're going to get it. You need to deal with a tiny bit of latency, basically, in the end. So I'll set mine for 256. Now, as I hit this button, if you look at the part of the screen right here where I'm pointing, which is the CPU meter, it's going to change probably drastically. Let's find out. 256. And this thing should probably start pegging, and when maybe when I hit OK, it'll get to where it's in real time. Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Didn't do it. All right, so anyway, I'm setting it to 256 for my block size for recording. Okay, over here you have this protection thing, which is really cool. It's like a virtual memory kind of a buffer kind of deal. I won't go too deep into it. It's a lot like a paging file on a hard drive. But anyway, okay, so when recording, let me back up because I lose my train of thought. Block size should be small for less latency, okay? If the dropout protection's on maximum, you're probably still going to get a little bit of echo. So if you set this to minimum when recording, it's best. Okay, now I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to turn on here's my mixer. I'm going to turn on, well, they're already on. That's kind of crazy. My processor's kicking butt today. Okay, but you notice my meter went up, basically. If I hit play, let's see what happens. Anyway, so normally what would happen if I had too many plugins, this thing would this CPU meter would peg out, and basically I would start having the clipping and the choppy playing like you're having. But again, let me reiterate one more time. When recording, you want small, right here, block size for less latency, and processing to a minimum. Now, when you mix, or when you're having the problem where your device or your computer's tripping over itself, you go to this menu and you change this. As long as you're done with your recording, make sure all your recording's done. Now you're on the mixing side of things. You set this all the way as high as it'll go. Okay, you go to processing. Now you notice my CPU meter went down. You go to processing and you change this to maximum. Okay, and basically hit OK. Now when you turn your plugins on and you're mixing everything, you shouldn't have any glitches whatsoever. If you do, you've got a plugin that's just cornholing you on a Sunday morning, which is wrong in the face of God's eyes, whatever you want to say. I'm sorry. All right, if you double click this little meter or click it once, it shows you the CPU meter. But if you hit show devices, it shows you which plugins are doing the cornholing, if you will. If you click the CPU column, it will put things in order. Now you see the plugins that are taxing my CPU the most are the ones with the higher thing. If I click it again, it's obviously in descending order or whatever, or vice versa. But anyway, if you click it again, boom, here's the ones that are taxing you. Okay, I use this heavy compressor, which is badass, blah, blah, blah. As you turn them off, if I turn off the first two, let's see, you're going to notice your CPU goes down. You can uncheck a bunch of them, basically, and it'll just keep gradually going down, see? I got a bunch of those heavy compressors on, which I really shouldn't be doing. And then, of course, you go back and turn them back on, whatever ones that you absolutely need or you need on. The other thing that I'll recommend to you is, let's see something here. What about Easy Drum? Okay, if I click name, the stupid thing will stop running. Okay, the other thing, if you're still having problems after those settings have been changed, and now that you understand the way it's supposed to be set when recording, and extended buffer, basically for when you are doing your mixing, you shouldn't have any problems. But let's say you do. If you've got virtual drummers playing the MIDI files, all you do is you solo that track with your MIDI anything, whatever it may be MIDI, and you export it to where it basically bounces with all the mixer settings and all the bells and whistles, your drum track alone. There's a box you can tick when you're exporting your singled out MIDI instruments to audio that says import into project. So you tick that box. I'll show you here in a minute when it's finished loading. And it automatically puts it in a project for you. Now you can remove the virtual instrument, like let's say it's Easy Drummer. Let me give you a better example. All right, here's an example. All right, I don't think I have drums in this tune. It's an acoustic tune, but here's a drummer. Okay, so let's say you're actually using these two drum parts. So let me get my unmute thing going. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. I'm going to set my range from here to here. Well, right there. Well, right there. There you go. Wait, come on, man. Got to zoom in a little bit. Come on, man. I went a little further than I'm supposed to be here. Boom. So now my range is set just for that loop. Let me zoom out so you can see a little bit better. And here is my drum track, okay? Well, because the MIDI, the virtual instrument is playing, it's taxing my CPU, let's say, okay? So what we do is we hit solo, and these drums, I don't even know what they go to. Let's just find out. Stand by. Let's see what's sounding so dorky here. Okay, scoot over, bitch. There we go. Pardon me for doing a little EQing real quick. Let's see, overheads, drums. Usually I find problematic between 5 and 7K, but it needs to be a smaller bandwidth. There we go. Alright, forgive the impulsive mixing I got going on today. So yeah, I heard it needed to be done. As I soloed the tracks individually, you thought I was out of my mind, and when I put them all together, it sounded probably okay. Okay, so let's say, again, we're back to the CPU thing. I apologize for the mix in there. It was driving me crazy. It still sounds dorky, but it'll work for now. All right, so what we're going to do, if you hit Control-E, it's going to bring you to your export menu. Leave the folder where it automatically picks it, because that's where all your project files are at. Tick the box that says Import to Track. Make sure you set this to WAV 32-bit float, because that's the recording format. You don't want to put an MP3 in the middle of all of that. That's just, you're asking for more out of the computer. Okay, you got your range set, you hit export, boom. Okay, it's going to export it, and what you're going to be left with is a mix down of your drums, or whatever you had soloed. Then you can remove the virtual instrument, which will free up more from your CPU. Okay, so you see my CPU meters here, right? I've got my audio file. I'm going to check it. First thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to click on it and hit alternate N, which normalizes. I usually bring it down to about 3 dB after that. Then I lower this fader, because it's going to be loud most probably. Make sure nothing else is soloed. Solo my drums that I just exported. Make sure they sound good. Not too bad. Let's see if it sounds like the original. Sounds a little funky to me. Hang on a second. My kick drum disappeared. What happened? Oh, I had it on a different bus. It looks like I said. Turn this up. Turn these 3 down. Needs a little bit of sizzle from the BBE, not much. Come on. Alright, right about. Control E again, make sure this box is ticked, 32-bit float. We're going to copy over it. In fact, let's call it drums. Let's see. Alright, so we hit our button. Boom. Now, there's another way to do this, but I'm not trying to, let's see, what's the word, complicate the issue. If you were to right-click over the actual drum track itself and, I forget what it's called, transform to, let's see, right-clicking on it. Transform to audio track. That's another way of doing it. I'm not going to confuse the issue today. This is enough. Anyway, so getting to the point, if you export your audio, let's check it. Maybe it came out better this time. Oh, sorry. That's definitely workable. Okay, so now we've got our audio mix down. We don't need this anymore. So we go in here and remove that virtual instrument. When I remove Easy Drummer, you're going to notice, hopefully, if you know my computer's not that badass, but you know I did build it myself a long time ago. If I remove Easy Drummer, let's see if the CPU gets freed up a little bit more. Let me get the cool view here. Okay, so we're going to remove it. Here's our CPU meter. It went down not very much, just a tad, but it did go down. So that's another way you can free up CPU space, basically. And again, here's just a little refresher. When recording, turn all plugins off that are not necessary. Change this to, let's say, 256. And processing protection to a minimum. But when you're mixing and you've got everything recorded already, you add all your plugins, load the boat, as they say. You change this to the highest setting. Change the processing to maximum protection. If you still have problems, remove virtual instruments after bouncing. This is Ryan with Primeffect Studios in Biloxi. A little bit of information for a good friend about Presonus's protection for buffering latency audio device to remove pops, clicks, hiccups, and anything else that gets in the way for a smooth recording experience. Thank you.